Thank you for joining the Once Changing the World, which is India's first Future Tech meets Sustainability podcast. And today, I'm truly delighted and honored to have with me Dr. Venkata Subramaniam, who's an IBM Master Inventor, Quantum Distinguished Ambassador. His focus has been on AI reasoning and quantum AI plus ML. His vision is to set up quantum computing as a leading area of research in India. Dr. Venkat has contributed and led to 64 products, 34 patents, 150 papers, and 2,900 citations. So, Doctor, really appreciate and I'm truly honored to have you on a humble podcast. This is something, obviously, which I've pulled out the internet. We'll really appreciate if you can give a brief introduction and background.
Thank you so much, Eddie. It's really an honor to be here, in the new year, a new start, and I'm really happy to be speaking to you here. Thank you very much. And I've seen some of the work you've done. Excellent work. Thank you for bringing all the, science and art and all those things to the front, so thank you. I've been with IBM almost 25 years now. When the IBM Research started in India, I was one of the first few employees in IBM Research. I've worked in various areas, primarily in AI, machine learning, and now quantum, which I lead for IBM Research India today.
We're going to talk about AI and machine learning, but quantum computing, it's the big thing. It's the next frontier of computing. We're going to go from bits to atoms, to qubits. So it's a super exciting space, but that's the space which becomes completely non-intuitive, because what's happening in the quantum world is really funky. So would you kind of explain what is a quantum computer in a layman's terms, so everybody kind of understand what quantum computer is?
Yeah, sure. So see, Eddie, for the first time in history, there are now two different types of computing available to us. Since the 1940s up to now, we had one paradigm of computing based on the bits, like you said, right? So we had the analog computers, then the digital. Then we've been coming into this whole AI world, but all of that was built on the zeros and ones, right? For the first time now, we have a very entirely different kind of computing. So it's not a new kind of computer, it's not an extension of the existing computers. It's not a new kind of supercomputer using bits. It's a completely new computing paradigm, So, and as you rightly said, it's not using zeros and ones, but it is using what are called quantum bits or qubits. So qubits is what is used in quantum computers. At this point, quantum computers are, they are kept in very cold temperatures, lower than anywhere in the universe, very close to 0 Kelvin. And they use subatomic particles to compute, So subatomic particles, whether it is photons, electrons, so these are the particles which are being used now to do that computation. And these particles have very special properties, They have properties called superposition, entanglement, which makes it very special in the sense that, the same particle can be in multiple states at the same time. Multiple particles can be entangled, which means they behave very similarly to each other. And using these, new principles or, not new, it's been there for a while now. But this principle is what is being used in quantum computers. And that's what makes it powerful, because you're now using these very, extremely very properties, which, like you said, are very special, less understood. It even confounded, Einstein. You might have heard about the Nobel Prize this year, right? 2022, 1935, Einstein said it's not possible. There has to be something more to quantum mechanics to explain this phenomena. And it took us this long to get to a point where we are, not only disproving Einstein, but also using that property for computation.
Non-intuitive part of quantum computing is something which I think the entire world is still trying to wrap its head around, right from the superposition to entanglement, how does it do that? Because so you mentioned that, our traditional computing, we compute with bits. And now it's a completely new paradigm because we're going to be computing with the source code of life, atoms. We are all made out of atoms, and atoms, there has been, like you said, the superposition and entanglement is so fizzy. I mean, as soon as you get into it, you get into the conversation of like a very, like a woo zone. So I'm don't want to get in there. IBM IBM has been vested in quantum computing. And obviously, I mean, because it's going to be the future. Once we get like a proper working quantum computer, it's going to completely redefine how we communicate, how we do transaction, how we do simulations, and so on and so forth. Would you like to share the journey of IBM in the quantum computing space? From its first quantum computer to today, which I think in 2022 you unveiled Osprey, which is the world's largest quantum computer at 433 qubits. So maybe talk about the journey of IBM quantum computer to its 433 qubits. What does it mean? And somewhere on the news, I'd also read that IBM promises 1,000 qubit machine by 2023. So maybe you can summarize from the start to the 433 qubits to when it's going to go to 1,000 qubit. What would it mean?
Sure. Okay. So a quantum computer, okay, it's measured on 3 parameters. Okay. One is the number of qubits, okay, which you rightly pointed out, it has reached 433, right? And just last year, it was just over 100, okay, 127. So times 3, in a year, it has gone up by 3 times, right? The other measure is what is called quantum volume. Okay, quantum volume is how many qubits and what is the depth of this circuit or the program that you can write on a quantum computer, a single program to execute that, right? And that has gone up 4 times in a year, okay, from last year. That it's now at 512. Okay, so that's where we are. The other is the speed. How many circuits can you run in a in a second, right? And that has gone up to 15K, a times 10 improvement in just 1 year. Okay, so I'm pointing this out because we all know Moore's law, right? Moore's law, every 2 years, classical computers have been doubling in power. Okay, in some sense, that's been happening. In quantum, what is happening is every year it's doubling. In fact, this quantum volume, which is a measure of circuits, right? That has been more. It has been more than doubling since last. Right, it's now at 512. Right. So what has happened is, in 2016, IBM put the first quantum computer on the cloud, right? And that allowed anyone in the world to access a quantum computer. 3 very interesting things are happening. I think we'll discuss that in a bit. But cloud computing enabled people to access a real quantum computer, not a simulator, an actual quantum computer over the cloud, right? And write programs on it. You could execute something sitting here in India and it would run on this quantum computer, give you its results. You could see that it's noisy. It's so, everything. It even lets you do pulse level control, control the qubits. So that is where we have reached since 2016, right? 2016, the first quantum computer was put on the cloud. And now in 2022, we have reached a point where we are at 400 plus. We are doubling every year the quantum volume, the number of qubits. Like you said, this year, 2023, IBM is going to come out with 1,000 plus qubits. And the other very interesting thing that's going to happen now is that IBM is going to modularize these chips. So what does that mean? Today, these chips are sitting independent of each other. 1,000 qubit or the 433 that came out this year, you cannot connect it to another 433. But what's going to happen next year is that you're going to be able to connect multiple chips together, and that's going to accelerate how the number of qubits that you're going to have, right? The other very interesting announcement that's come out from IBM is that you're going to be able to do 100 cross 100 execution on the IBM quantum computers, where that circuit will run in a day's time, which means 100 qubits, and the circuit depth is 100, is 100. So you're going to be able to now, we're reaching a realm where we will be very soon be able to do things which we cannot do on classical computers. Classical computers, as we know, do simulate quantum computers up to, let's say, 20 qubits, 25, 30 qubits. Maybe that's where it is. But now that we have crossed this 100, crossed 400, I think it's now for the algorithm people, for the people who are actually working on applications, to figure out what can I do with this quantum computer now, because it's reached a point where it has become very interesting. It is able to do things that I possibly cannot do on my classical computer. And that's where we are, right? And this journey, like you asked me to say, it started about, in the 90s, IBM started demonstrating on very small qubit devices that, we can execute some of the known algorithms like the Grovers at that time, right? You can implement it to a small extent on these little qubit devices. 2016, it was put out on the cloud. And 2017, we started, we formed what is the IBM Quantum Network, which means, industry partners, academic partners, all of them start working with us. And today there are 200 plus such partners that we have, including IIT Madras, which just joined, 2-3 months back, which was the first institution from India in the IBM Quantum Network.
How cool is that? So you are saying we have transitioned into that exponential world where things are growing exponentially. You mentioned that from 100 qubits to 433 qubits, it was 3 times higher. Quantum volume is going 4 times higher. The speed is going by 15K per year. You have also put it out on a cloud since 2016 so that people can access it and write programs. You are modularizing the chip, and instead of just the 433 qubits, now you can multiply it and add it to, and make it exponential. And so how cool is this? Now, what does this actually mean for you? You're saying the hardware is pretty much sorted. Now it's for the software guys to come and build over it. So what does it mean? What are the applications we can build right now?
Okay, so the hardware is not sorted. Okay, so it is still getting sorted. There is the problem of error. Error is there. Quantum bits are very error prone today. Okay, they have a coherence time also, which means that they lose their state in a few microseconds, right? So the thing is that the hardware is not yet sorted. It is still getting sorted, but it is now available at a level where a user, can start doing interesting things with it. And so let me introduce another term, which is quantum advantage, which IBM calls quantum advantage, which is that you can use quantum computers to do something interesting where it does something much, much more faster or more efficiently compared to anything that the classical can do today, right? So that's quantum advantage, and we haven't reached there yet. Okay, so there was this Google supremacy experiment. People have contested that, various things happening, but what IBM is saying, quantum advantage is where you actually take a real life problem, a business problem, and demonstrate that you can do it much, much better on a quantum computer. Are we there yet? We aren't there yet. But like I said, the hardware is reaching a point where, we are having enough qubits to start looking at some of the tough problems. What are the tough problems? So some of the tough problems which people have been talking about, one is, nature simulation, right? Which classical will never be able to do. Why? Because nature is quantum mechanical in nature, right? And with the small, as I said, you can simulate only up to 20, 30 qubits. Beyond that, it's not possible. So now with the higher qubit devices available, it is now time for people to start thinking, how can I simulate nature in a way where I can do special things which I can't do with classical computers, right? So that's one. The other is things like machine learning. So machine learning itself has reached an inflection point. So you would have seen, this chat GPT, this foundation models. This is a very, very clear inflection point for AI also. What has it done? It has brought in unsupervised models into the play. You don't have to supervise. You have this large data, you train your model on it, and then you use that model for various tasks. You retrain it for using smaller amounts of data. And now again, quantum enters here. So quantum has other advantages. It's able to work in a higher dimensional space for AI. So it's able to do, much better data classification, for example, where you're able to draw boundaries between classes. So a class is what? Like cat, dog. So how does AI work? You show it lots of examples of cats, lots of examples of dogs, okay? And it forms this. But if cat, dog, you keep adding more and more animals, and some of them are very, very similar, the boundary becomes very tough to draw, right? But what quantum brings is that it's working in a much higher dimension. So what happens is it's able to draw these boundaries much better, like you and me do. We humans use much lesser data to train ourselves, and we also are able to do better, distinguishing between elements, right? We are also a general AI animal because we are able to, generalize AI. We learn one thing, we are able to apply it on something. And so AI has entered that realm with these foundational models today. And what is very exciting for me, coming from that AI background, is that quantum is now going to help us push those boundaries. It's going to, for example, do better classification, faster, maybe training, learning from lesser data. And we're already starting to see some of that evidence, right? And then things like, where can you apply all this? AI is getting applied everywhere, right? But quantum, as I said, nature simulation is definitely one big area. The second is, things like computationally intensive problems like finance. How much should RBI increase the interest rates? So if they were able to simulate, let's say I increase it by 50 basis points, 25 basis points, what happens to the economy? What happens to the GDP? What happens to the various other economic parameters? If I'm able to simulate that, today, I'm not able to do it on a classical computer because of the complexity of this problem. It involves very, very many parameters, and I'm not able to do it using today's classical computers. But quantum offers me that, opportunity to solve some of these very tough problems, whether it is from climate, whether it is from finance, whether it is from drug discovery, because, drugs, as you know, are molecules again. So a drug is a new material made out of molecules, and molecules, as you know, work, that's quantum mechanical in nature. So very, very exciting areas now open up. And it's and the other very interesting thing which I'm now seeing is quantum makes it interdisciplinary. Earlier what was happening was, computer science was sort of overwhelming everything else, especially in India. If you see, we were producing million plus computer scientists, and what was the number of others? Civil, mechanical, science, all these very small. And even those people were going into computer science, right? Now what's happening is suddenly, physics is hot because of quantum, right? Chemistry is hot because it's all, molecules and nature and all of that. And this really presents a beautiful opportunity for India also, that we produce all these graduates and we were all sending them to become computer scientists. But now here is an opportunity to spread ourselves into many other domains and make a big impact.
Right. So exciting times. I want to probe. You mentioned, that we are general AI animal. So we want to, probe and talk a little bit about, the quantum AI, but I want to get onto that later. I want to stick to the quantum computing bit only because you mentioned about, simulating nature, and Richard Feynman said that nature is quantum, and if you want to simulate nature, you better build a quantum computer. So, and there are physicists who have created a holographic wormhole using a quantum computer. So maybe talk about that. And while you're at it, you could also talk about what does that 433 qubit mean? As in, is IBM doing some work or something that you can share with the general public?
So some of the areas that my team and our collaborators here, and also, as I said, we are working with several of the Indian academic institutions, IIT Madras, which just joined the IBM Quantum Network. So we are definitely looking at new areas where we can apply this, things like protein folding, so where, you can use the molecular properties, but of course a protein is now a system. It's much more than many molecules put together. How is that going to behave? We are also trying to look at Indian finance problems, like I mentioned, because sometimes, India throws up very interesting, and complex problems. So how does a bank now work to ensure that, it is profitable, but it's at the same time, doing some of these things which is required of it, right? These small loans and all those things. And it's always very tough to model that, for somebody who is salaried. It's very easy to decide, do I give this person a loan or do I not give this person a loan? Right. And I can also go and get this, the money back from them if they don't do it, because I have mechanisms to do that. But from a small farmer or a person who does not give me any sort of collateral, who doesn't have a regular salary, how do I model that? How do I decide what is the amount of, that I can invest in this part of this thing? And those are things that you can simulate now. I mean, you cannot do it yet, okay? But these are interesting things as the number of qubits keeps increasing. These are things that you now see that, okay, there is a problem here. And I want to, I can't do it using just classical alone. So what are the hybrid techniques I can now bring in? Hybrid meaning I combine AI, classical, and quantum to solve some of these problems. I take advantage of the fact that, for example, that quantum lets me maybe train with lesser data. Maybe it is able to, give me better classification. So how do I use these properties, combine it with what is strong on classical today, and take advantage of these 433 noisy qubits that are there? So yes, these are things we are definitely working on, but no results to share yet. But hopefully that breakthrough is going to almost every.
Yeah. So I hope, really looking forward for that, and I'm sure it's going to come very, very soon. Now, obviously there are little downsides of this, because when we're working with the traditional systems, that it's still, you can't break those encryption, but once we have a working quantum computer, it says, or at least the assumption is that it would break all encryption. So for a banking industry, how can they be safe? With quantum computing, and since you mentioned about the finance also, and today. The data is the new oil, and through data you can pass that, trillions of or whatever petabytes of data, and you can come up with something really interesting. In the finance industry, do you see that, AI with quantum computing, tomorrow we can build these algorithms where you take the human out of the loop completely? Do you see that as a possibility?
So on the first one, the security, yes. I mean, there is eventually going to be a problem because the encryption schemes that we are using today will definitely come under attack. Okay, there is already fear that some of our, for example, in the government circles, that some of our Indian national data, whether it's defense, government, some of this could be just, people could be just collecting it today. We don't have a quantum computer which can break this yet, but they are just collecting, waiting for the day the quantum computer is powerful enough. And that time they are able to see the secrets, right? Because government secrets, defense secrets, pharma secrets, health secrets, these are not secrets for 2 years, 3 years. They are sometimes secrets for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, and it is possible that somebody is collecting that data and storing it and waiting for the day, in the next 5, 10, 15 years to just look at all of it. You are able to see everything, right? All the secrets, right? So there is that fear, but the good news is there are now techniques, post-quantum cryptography techniques, quantum safe. NIST came out with 4 standards. This year, 3 of them were contributions from IBM. But what this means is there are now techniques to secure ourselves. This is also a beautiful opportunity for India again because this, I don't know, Y2K, you would have heard about it, the year 2000, all the computers, we had to change their, the clock, the date thing there. And that gave a big boost to the Indian IT industry, right? Similarly, this, so IBM, we call it YQK, the YQ for quantum, and K. We don't know when it is coming, but it's coming, right? And here is a beautiful opportunity again for the Indian, developer community to help the world to make sure that we are secure and, we are able to, the world is able to, face up to this challenge, right? So that's one, right? The other, like you mentioned, what is the role of humans, right? So I'm sure everybody has tried ChatGPT, and I see even my kids now talking about ChatGPT. They say their teacher gave homework and they're saying, oh, I can go and ask ChatGPT and it will do. Am I allowed to do that? There are several, questions which are coming up. And I remember, when I was in college, calculator was a big thing. There was a big debate whether we should be allowed calculators into exams or they should not be allowed. So there was that debate. And now we are at a point where, you have this ChatGPT, which can, answer a lot of questions and write reports and do homework and all those things, right? So, but what, and with quantum, like you said, in the industry, right? Let's say, like you took the example of finance, right? In finance, what is the role of humans there now, right? So the humans are not going to go away, right? That's not going to happen. But more and more, what you're going to see is that you're going to have interactions, closer interactions between humans and machines, right? So the bank official is going to have much more sophisticated tools at their disposal. So for example, I gave the example of this giving loans, right, to a farmer who doesn't have any kind of credit history, right? Do I give this person a loan or not? Today, the banker relies on intuition, some understanding. He looks at the address, he looks at the person, does he look trustworthy? that's going to continue, but now he's going to have much more data also, where the data is going to help him to make that decision, right? So there is going to be a larger and larger interplay between humans and these machines, which is going to hopefully drive these things much faster, better. It helps our economy grow faster. It helps. We have this, our we have so many youngsters. We have one of the youngest populations, so it offers them an opportunity now to move beyond this manual kind of work or anything that they might be doing, to things where the computer is helping them to solve some of these tougher tasks that are there as a nation for us.
So you're mentioning about your children using GPT, and you also pointed out the evolution of mankind. Earlier there were, we moved from typewriters to calculators, now computers, and today we have like almost like a computer in a pocket. It's just that we don't call it a computer, and we pretty much cannot do anything without it. And you mentioned about Chat GPT. Then there's generative AI, which is doing text to speech, text to 3D, text to video. There is Meta, which is working on generating these virtual worlds out of just prompts. So yes, there is this one side which is scary, but I think we need to take this, throw the negative conversation ahead, and move on with the positive conversation, that here we have this man-machine convergence where we can leverage the tool of technology and create a better future, whether it's for individual consumers, businesses, government. Truly, for the first time, we have the opportunity to access all of the knowledge through these tools and build on it. So super exciting times. Now, you have been a proponent for quantum computing in India, and then you're really driving the conversation when it comes to quantum computing in India. China is leading the space when it comes to quantum computing. There's America, there's Canada, which I think is doing some really fantastic things. Where does India stand at this point in time? Because obviously it's allocated the national mission on quantum computing technology and application, which is allocated somewhere around 8,000 crores. Could you talk about the Indian ecosystem and what, according to you, India should do, or the developer, the community should do to drive this conversation of making us quantum ready?
Yeah, so that's actually a very important question that we as Indians need to look at. Okay, so here is a new computing paradigm which can help us, grow, leapfrog. Okay, and how are we going to use it, right? So that's a big question for all of us. Now, I'll give you, 3-4 examples, right? So one is, let's look at our space program. Let's look at our nuclear program. Let's look at our software industry, and let's look at our hardware industry, right? Now, if you look at our space program, you look at our nuclear program, both of them have done reasonably well, even through regimes where we had sanctions and various things placed on us. It has done well. Now what has happened is the space industry has suddenly opened up. There are so many startups there. There is so much development, every day happening there. People are launching satellites privately and all of that. Very exciting things, right? Software industry. 2024, India will have the largest number of software engineers anywhere in the world. Okay. And this is again a very big achievement for us. In the 60s, the first computers came, all of that happened. And then we had this homegrown industry that came up, right? Whether it was Infosys, TCS, all of these. And then, for example, IBM, we are also here, and we've set up the research lab. 25 years it's going to complete now. So we're doing very deep, cutting edge work in India in the software and algorithm space. Hardware, something, in the 50s and 60s, India did build its own classical computers. Okay. We had our computers. We were able to train some of the very best hardware engineers, but we never got to build a local industry in it, right? So what happened, all these people left, and in India there was never a hardware industry, right? So an ecosystem never came up. So what does this show us? All these 4 examples, it shows us that we have talent. We have talent across the board, okay, whether it is hardware, software, nuclear, this one, that one, everywhere there is great talent. We've done a great job with education, and with quantum also, I have no doubt. In fact, I see it, that the enthusiasm among the youngsters is immense. There nowhere else do you see this kind of interest, right? So kids are picking it up, even school children. We ran this NPTEL program. I think about 30% of them were school children, 12th class students who wanted to know what is quantum computing. So that's the level of interest. And as I said, talent we will have across the board in all aspects of quantum. But what are we going to, again, be only software, quantum applications, or this time are we also going to catch on to the quantum hardware? Okay. And that's where, I saw your interview with Professor Vijay Raghavan. So there are these professors who are doing a great job. They're building our local quantum computers, right? So the hardware side, they're doing it, but there is no ecosystem. I don't want this again to become that, we built our classical computers in the 50s and 60s, and then we trained people, very good talent, who all flew away and built other, to other countries, right? So here is an opportunity, and in the software, we are much better placed, okay? Because we have a local ecosystem now. All of us, who work in the software industry know that there is, if there is talent, we know how to use it also. There are various things which are happening. People are looking at applying quantum computing already in India, right? There are challenges there too, which I'll let you know in a bit. But so where does this 8,000 crores come in, right? So this 8,000 crores has to, so quantum, as you know, is not just computing. There is also sensing, materials, communication. So this 8,000 crores has to be spread across many of these things, right? So it's a tough job, okay, for the government to decide where do I put this money, right? But this is a great opportunity, like I said, because the talent is there, okay? Now it's for us to channel it, and so in the software space, okay, there is some amount of self, motivation which is driving that part because of the large population of software engineers. Also, India plays a large role there because all these quantum softwares are open source. People are contributing to these softwares. And so if Indian engineers adopt it, it becomes bigger, right? So it's in everybody's interest to bring in the Indian software engineers. But it's the hardware where we need to figure out, what is that path the government has to figure out. The government announced it in 2020, but so far they have, done small things, and they are yet to, formulate the big, I saw some announcements recently where they're going to set up some more hubs. There is already a iHub in Quantum Technology Foundation in IISER Pune focused on quantum. Like I said, IIT Madras just joined the IBM Quantum Network. So there is a lot of activity which is going on in these academic institutions. Now it's for the industry also to come in. There is a chance here for industry to become, early adopters and gain that advantage and gain a, lead over their competition, right? And that's an opportunity now for the Indian industry. And I want that, at least the public sector, some of the large companies, they start exploring this because, as I said, the talent is there. It's really about channeling that talent into areas where it will bring maximum benefit.
I think today, as a nation, or as an institute, I think we're pretty much aware, or it was aware of how we could safeguard from a virus, but somehow we didn't have the foresight, and we didn't build up the capacities. Today, I think quantum computing is that tool which we need to look at and start investing now and be ready, and start from the fundamental layer of understanding and laying the building blocks, because it is the future. And once we have that quantum computing, which is accessible, which IBM is already doing it on the cloud, if more and more people, more and more businesses, institutes, the governance start adopting that, I think you will be much future safe, and we won't be saying that, oh, we could have done this or we could have done that. If students want to start, what would be your advice to them? Where can they start if they want to get into quantum computing?
Yeah, sure. So today, quantum computing is, so I'll give you my example. I graduated in 1991 with my bachelor's in engineering, right? At that time, there was no computer industry in India, okay? But somebody had the foresight to put a computer science, Fortran, programming, all of that into our curriculum, and we all learned it, okay? And what happened by the year 2000, when Y2K and all these things came, suddenly we had so many people who could program and use computers and solve these problems for the world, right? So here was somebody, that had that foresight that, okay, computers are not yet here in India. There are no jobs, but if people start learning, there is an opportunity which is going to happen, right? And 30 years later, I'm very grateful for that opportunity, where some professor also even taught us AI that time, where very few colleges were teaching it, right? So that was an early start, is very, very important. And today, you don't have to wait for that professor to give it to you, because I had to wait for it. Somebody had to tell me, now children are so much more aware. There is, the internet. As I said, the quantum computer is available over the cloud. You can start accessing it. That time, for our computer class, we would just be given 1 hour. Take off your shoes, go into that room and start programming, and that's it. We got 1 hour a week. Okay, so that's the only time we got. But today, kids are not limited by any of these things, because cloud is available. You have access over the cloud to actual resources, which you can start using. All the code is open source. Qiskit is open source. Kids can go and start learning. We have it available in 4 Indian languages today. The Qiskit textbook, Malayalam, Tamil, Bengali, Hindi, and coming up in many more languages. So here is an opportunity where students just have to type, quantum computers. They can get the best lectures online. Qiskit, there is a YouTube channel for Qiskit where there are videos available from IBM, from multiple, good speakers on all different topics, from starting with the basics to, more complex things. There is also a visual composer. Somebody who doesn't know how to program, you can go and visually, start using a quantum computer by placing gates and all those things, right? So there is no excuse for not getting into quantum if you have that interest, right? So, and as I said, this is something which gives an opportunity not just for computer science people, but for physics, chemistry, finance, management, because this is an emerging area. And here is an opportunity for you to pick up something which is very, very exciting, which has, troubled big scientists like Einstein. And here you get an opportunity to use that, technology and do something with it.
How cool is that? Today, we have the opportunity, because the internet, like you pointed out, it's full of educational content. At one point in time, you had to go through the process of going through an education institute, spend 15 years of your life, or 20 years of life doing education. Today, you have these micro credential courses, MOOCs, massive open online courses, which is available for you truly free. People such as yourself are doing these podcasts, sharing information. So I think what today the only thing that stops a person is the desire and intent. Because if you have the desire and intent, you can reach out to people. I mean, learn from your peers and build out applications, truly into the next computing paradigm, and create an application which could completely change the world. Artificial intelligence. Now, you have been invested in artificial intelligence, and you've been doing some work in AI reasoning, quantum AI, and ML. Today, we are in a very narrow space of AI, though there are talks about how GPT is fast going towards general AI. But we still pretty much far away from a general purpose artificial intelligent machine algorithm. Where does your work and where does quantum computing, the role of it play into making AI general, like a general purpose artificial intelligence?
Yeah, so we are at a point where AI has reached a very interesting point where you don't have to give it all this labeled data, lots and lots of labeled data, which was always a problem for any domain, right? So in some sense, the foundational models are general. Okay, they are able to generalize to a large extent the underlying model of the data. So the more data you are able to use to create this data representation, the foundational model, you're able to do a better job, okay, of generalizing, right? And so this is a very exciting development, because it now means that we are headed in that direction of general AI. These are some of the first steps that we can say that we are taking now. And now quantum comes in, right? Quantum is, as I said, we have seen early evidence that it probably requires lesser training data, to train. It is able to do more complex kind of, modeling of the data. It is able to draw better boundaries because it's working at a higher dimensional space. So as a result of all this, it means that we are in for a time when AI will get accelerated, because already, in the just past 4 or 5 years, we have seen immense adoption of AI. AI is now permeating almost every industry. Every customer you talk to is now not asking the question, do I get into AI? They're saying, I want to get into AI. Tell me what I can do. Okay, so the question that industry is asking has changed, right? And that acceleration of the question is going to have, it's going to happen even faster with quantum coming in, with hybrid techniques of quantum plus AI coming in. So, in IBM, we say now it is the convergence of bits, neurons, and qubits. That's the era in which we are now.
Thank you, Doctor. Really, really appreciate it. It was a truly pleasure and honor to have you on the podcast. My last question to you. If you had to paint a picture of what could India look like in the next 10 years or 20 years, and what would the industries look like if they start leveraging quantum computing, what would you say?
So I would, it's my, of course, it's my hope also that, India leads in quantum. And how does it lead? One, it has the talent, so talent in terms of people using quantum computers to do new and exciting things, So I saw this, the Japanese government, I think, said that, our goal is to reach 10 million users of quantum computers in the next 5 years or some such time they had put, because that, drives innovation on its own. It takes a life of its own. Internet also took off after 10 million users. In anything, you see the more people come into that field, start using it, one person or two people cannot visualize and implement or do everything. It has to be many people coming in, and we have to enable that for India. We have to make sure through programs like yours and through education and stuff to ensure that people are getting into this field, exploring it and figuring out what are the great things that they can do with it, right? In terms of industry, I would really like our Indian industry to be the pioneers, to be the first adopters, to solve their tough problems, to look at, see what are their tough problems and how can they solve it. And if we do that in the next 10 years, we would have leapfrogged by enabling our youngsters, our industry, our economy to do some of the very tough things and take a lead in the world in using this technology for economic growth and societal benefits.
Thank you, Doctor. Really appreciate it. It was a lovely conversation, a complete learning conversation for me, and I'm sure it'll be for the listeners. I hope the government comes together, but I think more than the government, I'm very positive about the people, because I think it's the students, the entrepreneur community, which are going beyond, and I don't think they are even depending upon anything. They're not depending or looking up at investors or government, because they are hustling. The jugadu nature of Indian entrepreneurs, we are going beyond, and I'm sure through your inspiring words and your cloud open source of quantum computing, I'm sure more and more people, students, younger minds will get into this space and possibly lay the foundation of making us a quantum ready for tomorrow. So thank you for being part of the podcast. And to my listeners, if you like what you see in here, then please press the subscribe button. And until next time, see you guys. Bye-bye. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you so much, Eddie. It was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.